Every minute, South Korea's household debt rises by an estimated 100,000 US dollars. Every 12 minutes, a South Korean is declared bankrupt.
그러니까 이거 이자가 뭐고 안 보인다니까요. 돈이 급하면 아무것도 안 보입니다.
The country has the highest household debt to GDP ratio in Asia. And it's driving people to desperate measures. A ticking bomb waiting to go off.
문을 똑똑똑 소리 이렇게 치면은 누군지 두세 명 누군지 알겠으니까 그 사람 없는 것처럼 행동했던 것 같아요. 집안에서도 그냥. 불도 안 켜고 생활했었고 그냥 거의 지지근지지근 집에서 그냥 밖에도 안 나가고.
For 11 months, debt collectors harassed Ko Young-gyu relentlessly.
계속 문자로 보내고 안에 있는 거 다 알고 있어요. 나오세요. 그 전화하고 막 계속 그러니까.
Ko owed a whopping 50,000 US dollars. The stress drove him to cut himself. He missed his artery and survived. But living meant his debt kept growing. In 10 months, it ballooned by nearly half to 70,000 US dollars. In despair, he overdosed on pills. He sent a suicide note to his family, who called the police. They broke down his door and stopped the suicide. When his family finally found out about his debt, he tried again for the third time, poisoning himself with a potent mix of alcohol.
그때 2016년도 그게 어떤 경우였냐면 이제 가족이 알게 되고 그러니까 그런 수치스러움 때문에.
Ko's multiple suicide attempts are hardly the exception. Between 2014 and 2018, more than 800 people tried to kill themselves by jumping off this bridge in Seoul. Known as the Bridge of Death, the Mapo Bridge is one of South Korea's most popular suicide spots. The top reason for suicide? Debt.
여보세요?
Debt counselor Kim Min-chul believes the top reason that drives debtors to end their own lives is shame.
이게 동양의 전반적인 문화 중에 하나가 그 수치심을 갖고 있으시거든요. 빚이 100이라면 70만 공개하시고 30을 숨겨요. 이런 경우가 굉장히 많습니다. 그럴 땐 두 번은 더 이상 말 못하겠어요. 이렇게 문제가 더 번져나가는 경우가 있기 때문에.
South Korea may be an economic powerhouse, but its households are up to their necks in debt. And this debt is growing. Korean households owe banks and other financial institutions 1.75 trillion US dollars. The country's household debt as a ratio of its GDP now ranks the highest in Asia.
Household debt has been rising at much faster rate compared to household income itself, which suggests that people are taking on more debt in order to repay back their original debt.
Household debt refers to student loans, car loans, home mortgages, small business loans, and credit card debt. Debt that individuals like you and I incur. In his late 20s, Ko had 4 credit cards. They gave him a combined monthly credit limit of some 30,000 US dollars. on an income of just $500. Flush with credit, Koo went on an 18-month buying spree.
여태까지 내가 못 해본 거, 못 사본 거 한번 해보고 이렇게 고가의 캠코더 사서 여행 사서 제주도 또 여행도 가고 또 여러 가지 제 신발도 보조기구도 사고 해서 좀 한번 풍요롭게 한번 1년 살아보자. 대충 대략 1년 살아보자. 그렇게 해서 살았던 것 같고 살아서 이제 그때 쓸 당시에도 마음 편하진 않았어요. 되게 힘들었어요.
In South Korea, credit card use is a key contributor to the country's high household debts. Koreans use credit cards more widely than anyone else in the world. Buying on plastic accounts for some 40% of South Korea's GDP, much higher than America, where it's 18%. In a country focused on achievement, material goods serve as a marker of success. But this consumerist culture is a fairly recent development. As recently as the 1990s, South Korean households had one of the world's highest saving rates. That is, until the 1997 Asian financial crisis.
South Korea is a huge bailout from the International Monetary Fund.
Unemployment rates, too, are climbing in South Korea.
Huge corporate debts are looming and could lead to more insolvencies.
With businesses limping, the South Korean government tried to kickstart the economy by encouraging consumers to spend. It gave tax breaks for plastic payments. The result? The number of companies issuing cards exploded. Between 1999 and 2002, the number of credit cards for every adult doubled to 4. And as competition heated up, credit card companies also started loosening credit limits to entice more cardholders. Millions defaulted on their card payments, dragging down with them credit card companies. The largest of them, LG Card, had to be rescued. With a $3.9 billion package by the government the following year. But fast forward 16 years on, South Koreans are once again on a plastic spending spree. Annual plastic payments have already exceeded pre-credit card crisis levels by 17%, hitting $700 billion in 2019, fueled in part by the generous 15% tax exemption on card spending and spurred on by reckless lending.
그때 100만 원, 2005년도에 100만 원, 2007년도에 200만 원씩 한도가 쭉쭉 늘어나더니 2008년도 200, 그 다음에 2010년도까지 가니까 17년도, 10년도 가니까 4,500까지 늘어났어요, 한도가. 그 다음에 700.
By the time he was in his mid-20s, Koo was hooked on plastic. So when he lost his job due to a medical condition, he tried gaming the system to hang on to his cards. He succeeded.
서류 같은 거 조작하면 된다는 거죠. 그러니까 서류 어떻게 보면은 일은 하고 있는데 일은 예전에 일을 했다는데 그대로 주소를 그 목록을 남겨놓고 그 일을 했던 그런 곳에서 이제 그런 상황들을 남겨놓고.
With credit extended to those without the means to eventually pay up, excessive debt is now a widespread issue in South Korea. 134,000 people went to the bankruptcy courts in 2018. That's 1 in every 300 adults. What's more, the group with the fastest hike in bankruptcies are young people in their 20s.
이거 되게 유명하잖아. 이런 색깔도 되게 괜찮은 것 같아.
아, 별로야.
Shopping buddies Park Jong-hyuk and Hong Tae-rim often meet to check out the latest fashion.
이거 진짜 잘 어울린다.
With a soft spot for luxury items, they each spend about $16,000 a year, mostly on shopping and food.
선글라스 괜찮다.
선글라스? 이거 예쁘다.
카페 되게 예쁘게.
이거.
And they showed us some of their prized items, including a $3,000 bag.
제가 이 마크가 너무 마음에 들어서 산 거거든요. 이렇게 열리는 게. 그래서 솔직히 메고 다닐 때마다 기분은 좀 좋아요.
지금 갖고 있는 거는 지갑? 카드 지갑인데 그거 뭐 작은 건데 마르지엘라 브랜드의 지갑입니다.
되게 작은 지갑이네요. 이거 가격이 어느 정도 되고 어떻게 돈이 어디서 나와서 구매했는지 좀 알려주세요.
이 지갑을 사고 싶어서 돈을 모아서 카드 지갑을 샀습니다. 이거는 마르지엘라라는 브랜드고, 그리고 해체주의 작가가 만든 브랜드인데 가격은 한 50만 원대 정도 합니다. 꺼내면은 기분 좋고, 그래서 계속해서 새로운 아이템을 사고 하는 것 같습니다. 사서 SNS에 막 자랑하고, 그럼 친구들이 와, 너 이거 있냐? 이러면은 막 더 어깨 올라가고 더 기분 좋고, 그렇게 자랑도 하고, 네, 그랬습니다. 그 아이템을 사서 쓰고 있는 제 모습을 상상하면 엄청난 그 행복감과 그리고 만족감, 나의 가치가 마치 하늘로 확 상승한 느낌이 들어서 정말 꼭 사야겠다 이런 생각을 가졌던 적이 있어요.
과시욕 자랑하고 싶어가지고.
While Hong often splurges on $200 beauty treatments and cosmetic products, Park's passion is $300 to $400 limited edition sneakers, often available only through a lucky draw.
항상 응모를 계속 꾸준히 하고 있습니다. 그럼 당첨되면은 진짜 세상을 다 가진 기분으로 매장으로 뛰어가서 살 돈이 없으면 빌려서라도 샀던 것 같아요.
Since 2014, consumer spending among millennials like Park and Hong has risen twice as fast as that of baby boomers. And they will soon outspend the average baby boomer despite having far less wealth. But for now, these two are not yet in the red. Park relies on wealthy parents for his indulgences. Hong tries to keep up with her spending with 2 part-time jobs and a YouTube product review channel. But the pair know of many other friends who do not have the means to keep up with their taste for luxury.
명품을 사고, 예를 들면은 친한 친구 중에 알바를 한 돈이 있으면은 그 돈으로 전부 명품을 사는 거예요. 그러면은 자기 스스로의 가치가 이제 높아졌다고 생각을 해서, 그래서 계속해서 중독으로 사는 친구가 있어요.
이게 너무 계속 연기가 돼서 한번 연락을 드렸어요. 내일 일단은 오전 중으로 12시까지는 입금을 하시고 반드시 좀 문자를 주시고요. 오늘까지는 제가 그 채권자한테 잘 말씀을 드리겠습니다.
Hwang Il-dong works for a law firm that specializes in collecting debt. He's seen his fair share of runaway spending, spurred by the desire to keep up appearances and be fashionable.
어떤 보상 심리 같은 것도 있는 것 같긴 하고, 본인이 어떤 부분이 부족한 부분을 채울 수 있는 가장 쉬운 길이 돈이잖아요. 어떤 명품을 산다든가 좋은 차를 탄다든가 뭐 이런 걸로 보여줄 수 있는 가장 어떻게 보면 쉬운 방법이에요. 돈이라는 게. 너무 이제 거기에 휩쓸리는 분들이 많고, 우리나라 사회가 약간 좀 그런 경향이 크죠. 유행이라든가 이런 데 민감하잖아요. 외국에서는 개성을 존중하지 않습니까? 그죠? 프랑스나 뭐 유럽 쪽은 남들이 입은 옷은 안 입으려고 하는데, 우리나라는 누가 입었다더라, 예쁘다더라 그러면 다 그거 입고 있잖아요. 요새 뭐 어떤 유행에 뒤처지면 내 행복 자체도 뒤처지는 걸로 생각하는 것 같아요.
An even more serious addiction that is leading young South Koreans into debt is gambling. In 2019, the Korean Center for Gambling Problems announced the number of teens treated for gambling addiction had jumped 6 times from 2015, with most of these youth gambling on illegal websites. And that's how Kwon Do-hyun got started at 20 years old, when he was an undergraduate.
처음에는 당연하게 초심자의 행운으로 돈을 따더라고요. 4천만 원까지도 따봤어요. 진짜 100만 원도 안 되는 돈을 시작해서. 이제 그러면서 이제 망가지게 된 거죠.
근데 저 이해가 안 돼. 어떻게 1,000만 원, 100만 원에 4천만 원이 될 수 있었지?
그건 진짜 운이에요, 운. 말 그대로 그냥 행운. 근데 그 돈도 결국 다 날렸고요.
그리고 모든 거를 잃고, 그러니까 가지고 있는 다 잃고, 빚은 그럼 어떻게 시작했어요? 그 도박 빚은?
진짜 대학생 신분으로 빌린 돈도 있고요.
그러니까 대학생한테도 돈을 빌려줬었어요?
네, 정부 햇살론 이런 게.
A Sunshine Loan is a microcredit scheme for low-income individuals supported by the government. Unlike student loans, which are paid to the college, such loans are handed out directly to the borrower. Kwon got a $12,000 loan, an average sum for such loans. He gambled it away in just 10 days. After months of spiraling debt, his parents stepped in and lent him some $20,000 to repay his debts. But that didn't stop the gambling. Finally, his parents threw him out.
소액 결제 같은 거 해가지고 막 요금 100만 원씩 나오게 하고 하니까 차라리 집에 없는 게 쫓아내버리는 게 아무래도 피해가 덜 끼치잖아요. 그러니까 쫓겨난 거예요. 제가 뭐 나가겠다고도 했고. 많이 힘들었죠. 네. 막 무좀 같은 것도 없었는데 무좀도 걸리고 제대로 씻지도 못하고 맨날 피로에 찌들고 맨날 돈 부족하고 배고프고.
Kwon's sister took him in after he'd spent 2 months on the streets. But his addiction continued. With no source of income, he turned to informal loans to feed his gambling habit. Kwon told us about an online debt forum on Naver Cafe, where individuals can post requests for loans. But some lenders are loan sharks.
지금 입사하신데 새로 이제 일자리 얻으셨잖아요. 이제 신규 일자리. 지금 워크아웃 신청하셨었잖아요.
Kim Min-chul has been a debt counselor for 7 years. And he told us Naver Cafe isn't the only platform that loan sharks use to target young victims.
청소년을 대상으로 하는 거 있습니다. 그것 좀 말씀드릴까요? 30, 50 대출이라고 이름 붙였는데 카톡으로 많이들 하더라고요. 그래서 30만 원 빌려줄게, 2주 후에 50만 원 줘. 단순하게 복리로 계산했을 때 한 1,500% 되는. 그래서 학교 앞에서 30만 원을 줘요, 학생에게. 그거 그리고 나서 2주 후에 찾아와서 50만 원을 받아가는 그런 형태가 고등학생들 사이에서 뭐 이 핸드폰과 카톡 메신저를 통해 가지고.
In 2018, conservative estimates put lending by loan sharks at $5.5 billion. With more than 400,000 South Koreans taking up such loans. That's nearly 1 in every 100 adults in the country. Making youths particularly vulnerable to loan sharks is unemployment. Government statistics show that 1 in 10 South Koreans between 15 and 29 are jobless. But some research using broader definitions found that as many as 2 out of 10 youths are not in education, employment or training, or are simply idling. Some observers blame minimum wage laws for deterring small businesses from hiring inexperienced youths. Kwon studied social work, but didn't finish his degree. And for the past year, he's been struggling to find full-time employment. Since moving in with his sister, Kwon's found 2 part-time jobs, paying him a total of $1,000 a month.
뭐 자기 노력하기 나름이겠지만 요즘 진짜 아르바이트도 구하기 경쟁이 정말 치열하고 취업도 잘 안 되고 정말 자기 스펙 쌓는 분들이 많거든요.
In his downtime, Kwon is trying to polish his new web design skills. Last year, he took a 6-month vocational training program, one of the measures offered by the Korean government as it grapples with unemployment among youth, which is at a 17-year high.
취업이 안 되니까 또 1, 2년 재수하면서 또 계속 씁니다. 쓰고 난 다음에 이제 취업해보면 그걸로 당장 갚을 수가 없는 돈이 되는 거죠. 그럼 거기서부터 계속 빚이 생기는 거예요.
그러니까 점점 이제 개인회생이나 파산을 신청하는 분들 연령대가 낮아지는 이유 중에 하나가 뭐 일단 취업은 늦어지고 있고 그 다음에 대학에 다니기 위해서는 그 비싼 등록금을 내야 되는데
6 out of 10 young people leave college with an average debt burden of at least $10,000, mostly from college loans.
저축은 현재 전혀 하지 못하고 있고요. 아무래도 대출 이자나 이런 게 많다 보니까 대출 쪽이 한 달에 한 25만 원 정도 나가고 그 다음에 누나한테 생활비 한 20만 원 정도 주고 엄마한테도 이제 빚이 많으니까 조금씩 한 10만 원, 15만 원씩이라도 드릴 수 있을 만큼 드리고 하다 보면 이제 남는 건 사실상 거의 없습니다.
But it's not just young people drowning in debt. There's another group who are nearly 5 times more indebted than the general population. They make up a quarter of South Korea's workforce, the self-employed. And their debt problems are about to get much worse. Bad enough to shake the economy.
At times of stress like this, obviously self-employed SMEs are the ones that get hit the most because they become cash-strapped.
South Korea's 6 million strong army of self-employed business owners make up 1/4 of its workforce. That's one of the highest in the world. And it's all because many employers are reluctant to retain older workers, with some setting a relatively young mandatory retirement age.
된다. 특히 자영업이다 이럴 경우엔 어떤 문제가 있냐면 대한민국 자영업자분들이 자기가 자영업을 하고 싶어서 하시는 게 아니라 근로소득 시장에서 밀려나서 어쩔 수 없이 하시는 분들이 많단 말이에요.
거기 부장님 좀 있으면 은퇴하시죠? 은퇴하시고 뭐 하신대요? 그러면 대부분 제가 답을 못해요. 혹시 술 마시면서 해보셨을 거라고. 닭집, 빵집, 커피숍, 편의점 넷 중에 하나죠. 그러면 거의 답이 맞아요.
In fact, chicken and beer shops are such a popular option among retirees that there are 87,000 of them in Korea. This is double the number of McDonald's restaurants worldwide. More worrying, these small businesses usually don't qualify for bank loans.
The banks have been so conservative, starting from back in 1997, when the economic crisis hit. A lot of them went down and they had to be merged into new banks. So these banks, because they want to become more healthier and safer, they became more conservative. So the near-prime borrowers and the subprime borrowers didn't really have options to borrow money from a legitimate bank in Korea.
Near and subprime borrowers are those with average to very poor credit scores who are rejected by banks. Almost half of Korean adults fall into this group, including many small business owners. 70% of them land up taking loans from other lenders, risky, high-interest loans. There are 3 tiers of lenders in South Korea. The first are regular commercial banks. They offer the lowest interest rates of about 2 to 5%. Next are non-bank financial institutions like insurance companies and credit card firms. But rates at second-tier lenders are higher and range from 5 to 20%. In the third tier are registered private money lenders. They charge even higher rates.
소상공인분들 같은 경우에는 소득 신고를 제대로 못하다 보니까 은행에서 소외되는 경우도 많이 있거든요. 그 세무 기장을 단체로 맡겨버리시는데 그 세무사분들이 알아서 그냥 탈세를 해주신단 말이죠. 이분은 매출이 높고 소득이 있는데 세금 내역을 보니까 거의 소득이 없는 걸로 나오세요.
In the mid-2000s, banks shunned average to poor credit borrowers. This meant boom time for second and third tier lenders, with some private money lenders charging the maximum legal interest rates of 66%. In 2005, debt counselor Yang Jin-woo was then a branch manager for Sunwa Money, one of the largest private money lenders in South Korea. In 2018, Sunwa's revenue was some $1 billion a year.
그렇기 때문에 이제 그 당시는 대출 심사가 지금보다 굉장히 허술했었고, 그때 상황이는 사실 워낙 이자가 높다 보니까 고객 한두 명이 뭐 이제 돈을 안 갚는다 하더라도 크게 회사에서는 문제가 없었어요. 왜냐하면 나머지 10명 중에서 7명, 8명이 돈을 잘 갚아도 한두 명이 안 갚는 거를 충분히 상쇄를 했거든요.
Yoon Jin-sik had high hopes for his modest snack shop when he opened it in 2012. He pumped in $35,000 in savings, along with $20,000 worth of investment from a close friend. The funds went to his rental deposit and renovations. But in less than a year, he realized he needed extra funds.
어떤 돈들도 다 까먹고 갈수록 이제 계속 마이너스를 보니까 이게 뭐 한 달에 마이너스 100만 원부터 만약에 시작을 했다고 하면 나중에 되니까 한 달에 마이너스가 재료비까지 하면 한 500만 원씩 나더라고요. 이게 운영이 안 되더라고요. 그리고 뭐 젊은 친구들이다 보니까 좀 많이 퍼줬어요. 제가 좀 많이 바보처럼 장사를 했습니다.
When Yoon couldn't borrow from a commercial bank because he had a poor credit rating, he was still able to borrow $13,000 from a few second-tier lenders at interest rates of around 28%. He used this to experiment with new food trends.
뭐 예를 들어서 그때 당시에 우리나라에 그 지팡이 아이스크림이라고 대유행을 했었는데요. 그걸 이제 울산에서는 제가 최초로 들고 왔었거든요. 근데 그 기계가 1,200만 원. 기계 한 달도 사용 못했습니다. 또 새로운 음식들도 또 시도를 해보고 뭐 이러면서 빚이 엄청나게 커지더라고요.
When Yoon couldn't pay back the $13,000 loan and his monthly losses continued to stack up, he turned to his friends to haul him out of debt.
돈 빌리려고 많이 울었습니다. 정말 많이 울었습니다. 그 눈물이 가짜의 눈물이었습니다. 돈을 빌리기 위해서. 친구들, 가족들, 전화하면 우는 거예요. 진짜 죽을 것 같다. 그리고 참 치사한 놈이 카카오톡을 일부러 새벽 3시, 4시에 보냅니다. 이 친구들이 아침에 일어나서 보고 좀 놀래라고. 진식이 이러다 죽는다. 이런 걸 느끼라고.
예, 맛있게 잘 먹습니다.
Yoon Jin-sik milked his friends dry. Because try as he might, he couldn't get more loans. After 2012, to clamp down on lax lending practices, the government tightened lending rules and maximum interest rates at second and third tier lenders. But the stricter the government was on the formal lending sector, the faster the informal sector thrived.
이자를 낮췄을 때 문제가 등록 대부업체에서 대출을 거부했을 경우에는 더 이상 내려갈 데가 여기밖에 없는 거거든요.
After 2 years, Yoon Jing-shik finally exhausted his friend's goodwill. And his mother sold her only gold jewelry to help him. Desperate, he finally turned to a loan shark.
그러니까 이거 이자가 뭐고 안 보인다니까요. 돈이 급하면 아무것도 안 보입니다. 40%고 뭐고 돈만 빌려주면 최고죠.
But this 40% was for a 2-month loan, with payments due daily. Over 1 year, Yoon took out $15,000 in loans and paid back $36,000 in interest.
일수는 또 일수대로 내야 되고 버는 돈은 없고 계속 하루하루 그랬죠. 한 3년 정도 쓴 것 같고요. 3년 정도 쓴 것 같고. 그러니까 제가 계산을 해보면 한 300만 원 스타트였는데 제가 갚은 돈이 한 2억 정도 되는 것 같아요. 일수로 갚은 돈이.
Undercover Asia managed to secure an interview with a former loan shark, Kim Min-soo. He was a loan shark for 5 years. To get new clients, Kim used to distribute business cards from his motorbike. And he's noticed an increased number of requests over the last few years, as Korea's economy posted its lowest growth in a decade, dragged by weak exports.
그게 딱 뉴스를 보고 하다 보면은 그 분위기를 딱 보잖아요. 전체적으로 경기가 점점 더 안 좋아지고 전화 문의가 엄청 많이 와요. 대출이 저희가 나갈 수 없는 사람들, 뭐 직장인, 뭐 택시기사, 뭐 식당 이모, 별의별 사람들이 엄청 많이 연락이 와요.
But Kim also found it more difficult to chase payments as the economy soured. Loan sharks like Kim become detectives, checking mailboxes and gas meters to see if a lender is hiding at home. But one of the most effective ways to recover money was to appeal to the borrower's sense of shame.
여자친구 알아? 또 주변 사람들이 알아? 이거를 제일 크게 두려워하죠. 매출이 이렇게 되는데 알맹이는 빚덩이였잖아요. 그런 거를 남한테 들키기 싫은 분들이 되게 많죠. 주변 사람들의 시선, 그런 게 좀 많이 신경 많이 쓰시더라고요. 가가지고 맨 처음에 이제 구두로 얘기하고 가서 또 의학 주고, 아까 뭐 식당 같은 경우는 가서 쳐다보고 있고 앉아 있고 그렇게 또 불편하게 하고 하도 이제 안 되면 이제 가족 건드는 거죠. 자녀들 왔다 갔다 하는 거 얼굴 외워가지고 사진 찍어가지고 보내고 정리할까 이런 식으로. 유치원으로 갈까?
In 2019, nearly half of South Korean small and medium enterprises didn't earn enough to cover their interest payments. And default rates among the self-employed jumped 30% from 2014. Yoon Jin-shik's food business lasted 4 years, 2 years longer than the average.
이게 사실 집계가 잘 안 돼요. 집계가 잘 안 되지만 매해 50만의 자영업자가 들어왔다 나갔다 합니다. 거기에다가는 이제 50만이 망해서 나갈 때 이 사람들은 망해서 나간 거기 때문에 돈을 못 갚는 거예요. 그럼 은행에 또 문제가 생기는 거죠.
In fact, almost a quarter of all new businesses close within a year. On top of the punishing loan repayment cycles, making things worse for small business owners is the recent property bubble that's led to higher rent and forced evictions. Yoon Kyung-ja and her husband ran a pig trotter business in downtown Seoul for 4 years, in this very shop space.
그러니까 내가 열심히 노력해서 돈을 벌면 앞으로 내가 좀만 더 힘들어도 나중에 잘 살 수 있을 거라는 그런 꿈들이 있었죠. 그 당시에는 다 사람들이.
But that dream turned into a nightmare. When Yoon and her husband were forcefully evicted from their shop. It all started with a rental dispute with their landlord. A new landlord had bought over the building where Yoon's shop was, and he wanted to quadruple her rent from $3,000 to $12,000. They had to move out if they didn't want to accede. But Yoon had just taken out a $30,000 loan to renovate their shop. The couple refused.
가게 자체가 저희한테는 전부니까요. 가게에서 생활을 해야지, 거기서 돈을 벌어야지 애들 교육도 시키고, 그리고 저희가 이제 살아가는 그런 모든 것이 가게가 기반이었으니까요.
공중적폐가 상생하라!
상생합시다! 임차 상인과
상생 안 해나.
300만 원짜리 월세가
Business rental disputes like this have become more common since 2014. As Seoul's property market grew red hot, fueled by low interest rates and relaxed mortgage lending rules. Like you, other small businesses have been hit by rising rents, though not the outrageous amounts that Yoon's landlord was demanding.
공중족발 승리한다! 승리한다! 승리한다!
After a 2-year deadlock, the situation escalated.
네, 그날 차 운전하고 가는데 되게 심하게 오고 간 거예요. 얘기가. 갖고 막 내가 여태까지는 봐줘서 네 와이프랑 애들은 안 건드렸는데 이젠 안 되겠다고 막 이런 식으로 막 그런 말도 오고 가고, 너 만나서 네 마누라 진짜 고생한다 막 이러면서 그런 것도 들어있고, 그리고 되게 인신 모욕적인 그런 내용도 들어있고요. 근데 그게 이제 격분하면서 갔는데 마주친 거예요.
It turned ugly very quickly. Here we see the landlord running. He's being chased by Yoon's husband, who's holding a hammer.
우선 망치가 망치를 때리려고 가는 게 아닌데 어디서 망치가 갑자기 나오는 거죠?
그러니까 차가 저희 차가 아니에요. 형님 차거든요. 그 형님이 원래 그 구두 그거 만드시는 그런 분이에요. 그래서 그런 장비가 있었어요. 근데 그거를 이제 갖고 나간 거죠.
Yoon's landlord was not injured seriously, but her husband was still given a 2-year sentence for assault, one he's currently serving. While the family was embroiled in the court case, the loan they took out to renovate the shop, along with its interest payments, swelled. Together with their legal fees, the family's debt is now $100,000. Forced to close their business, the family can no longer make their loan payments.
왜요라고? 엄마 왜요? 우리가 잘못한 게 없는데. 그 말이 맞는 거거든요. 근데 거기에 대해서 뭐라고 답을 해줄 수가 없는 거예요.
Beyond this impact on small business owners, more crucially, the real estate boom also drove the rise in household debt. as some families took up housing loans to speculate in property. But in late 2019, South Korea's top financial regulator finally issued a stark warning, saying the property market bubble could potentially burst. With mortgage loans making up some 2/3 of household debt, a collapse in home prices could cause millions of households to default on their home loans.
실제로 버블 확률은 서울 같은 경우에 상당히 높습니다. 예를 들어 상가에서 가격이 뚝 떨어지면 여기서부터 이제 부채가 터지기 시작하는 거죠. 그럼 연달아 터지는 겁니다, 이게.
To rein in household debt, the government has ramped up efforts to deflate the real estate bubble. It tightened home loan regulations, raised property taxes, and recently banned fresh mortgages for new homes worth more than $1.3 million. To cut the debt burden of the self-employed, the government lowered the maximum legal lending rate to 24% and worked with banks to hand out more affordable mid-rate loans. With a husband in jail and a shop space out of reach, Young Kyung-ja now runs a small delivery business based out of a central kitchen. But business is slow. This order at 6 p.m. is the first of the day. Despite putting in 12-hour days, she can barely make ends meet. So her sons have decided to forego college so they can help repay the family debt.
그 또래 애들이 가질 수 있는, 누릴 수 있는 그런 거 있잖아요. 그 나이 또래만 할 수 있는 것들, 친구들하고 그런 추억거리들이 없죠. 본의 아니게. 그래서 그런 거에 대해서 되게 미안하게 생각하고.
There is one solution that Yoon could have turned to had her husband not been a convicted felon. Bankruptcy, a scheme which Ko Young-gyu is taking advantage of to get a fresh start in life. He tried to kill himself 3 times because of his $70,000 credit card debt.
세 번째 하니까 실패하니까 제 운명이라는 자체, 인생이라는 자체가 계속 정상적으로 생활하다가 이제 삶을 마감하는 게 낫겠다 싶어서 최대한 어거지라도 살고 싶었어요, 이제.
Koo successfully filed for bankruptcy in 2018. As someone with no official income, his debt was fully discharged. But his record as a bankrupt will remain for the next 5 years. During this time, he will find it close to impossible to get any kind of legal loans. Today, Koo works part-time at a convenience store, earning $400 a month. But this may be the last time he has to deal with difficult customers. He's just been told that next week will be his last week of work. Like many small businesses, this store has been hit badly by a drop in business due to the COVID-19 virus. An economic catastrophe that could be the final straw, tipping household debt over the edge.
You'd probably see a lot of households reneging on debt because of the COVID-19 impact. The government is scrambling to contain the outbreak of COVID-19 in South Korea. So this year is going to be very much focused on how to stimulate or bring growth back to keep South Korea out of entering prolonged recession. It would be really difficult to push for policies that would tighten credit or tighten loans effectively to households.
With this new global economic shock, South Korea may need its households to spend more to save its economy, as they did after the 1997 and 2008 financial crises, possibly triggering yet another vicious cycle, with no end in sight.